At the end of 2019, 4.5 million individuals have died. Innumerable others have sickened. Entire industries have been devastated, and institutions have been closed as a result of the coronavirus. How did it come to that? Did the virus really migrate from an animal to its patient zero all of a sudden? Or was it something else? People are saying that China lied about the virus source to cover their tracks, and new evidence keeps pointing to exactly that. And as time passes, new evidence is coming to light. Without further ado, let's dive into the latest and shed some serious light on the topic. Recent reports have renewed interest in this coronavirus genesis theory, which scientists still deem implausible but deserves more study. The assumption that the novel coronavirus broke free randomly from a research lab in Wuhan, China, is once again in the news months after the World Health Organization investigation regarded it highly improbable. This has given a new dynamism to a supposition that many researchers thought is highly improbable and some have rejected as a conspiracy theory. What are the root causes behind it? Let's discuss that in the video. Amesh Adalja is a senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins University Center for Health Security and a physician who specializes in infectious diseases. According to Amesh Adalja, whenever an infectious illness outbreak occurs, it is necessary to look into its roots. He asserts that a full impartial inquiry of its origins should be done, and adds to that, the lab leak explanation is plausible, as is the animal spillover. The two hypotheses about COVID. Did the virus escape from the lab? The Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is adjacent to the Hunan seafood market where the first significant cluster of illnesses occurred, is typically blamed for the lab leak. Bad coronaviruses have long been collected and studied by the institution. Typically, the leak scenario involves scientists fiddling around with a virus to examine its qualities, maybe in gain-of-function experiments where infections are manipulated to be more deadly in an effort to comprehend them better. The lab's biosafety net, which has received criticism for having several gaps in it, was then somehow breached by this modified virus. Was the virus bioengineered? The virus didn't develop through bioengineering. As is now accepted among various scientists, there is no convincing evidence, according to researchers at Ohio State University led by Shanlu Liu for genetic engineering. Since the virus genome has been sequenced, we may anticipate finding evidence of added gene sequences if the virus genome has been changed. But as we know now, the sites where the new virus differs from bat viruses are dispersed rather randomly, exactly as they would be if the virus had spontaneously developed. Some technical features of the virus's molecular biology can be used to support the lab leak argument. The virus, for example, includes a furin cleavage site, which is a portion of the spike protein that allows it to enter host cells. This tool is present in several coronaviruses, but SARS-CoV-2 is the only one in the subgenus SARS-CoV-virus. The receptor binding motif of the spike protein appears to be bizarrely suited to hook onto human cells. This adaptability was also shown in the original SARS virus, SARS-CoV-1, which triggered epidemics in 2003, but only after it had mutated to become human-like. It was present in the Wuhan strain of SARS-CoV-2 from the start, as though it had been pre-adapted to humans. But these characteristics aren't a dead giveaway. They can all be found in natural viruses and aren't convincing proof that the virus was manufactured by humans. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. What is China's take on all of this? The COVID-19 epidemic may have started in a lab, according to a declassified U.S. intelligence dossier, but Wang Wenbin, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, called the claim unscientific and without evidence. So actually, it's a war. China versus the US. One is saying COVID spread mistakenly, while the other is considering it a biological weapon made by China. On whose side are you? Let me know in the comments section box. China's response to the report was criticism on Friday. The US decision to rely on its intelligence apparatus rather than scientists to determine the origins of COVID-19, according to Liu Pengyu, spokesperson for the Chinese embassy in Washington, is a total and absolute charade stated in an email. The statement read, "It would only weaken scientifically grounded origin studies and impair the worldwide effort to determine the source of the virus." The fatal COVID-19 epidemic was referred to as the China virus by former Republican President Donald Trump and many of his followers before he lost his re-election campaign. Involvement of WHO. The WHO's position on the causes of the pandemic has been sharply reversed in a study that was published on Thursday. As a result of a lab leak hypothesis that placed Chinese officials on the defense, several opponents have charged WHO with being hasty in its dismissal or downplaying of the issue. The WHO came to the conclusion that it was very implausible that the coronavirus could have been transmitted to people from a facility in the city of Wuhan during a closely supervised trip to China last year. Many researchers believe the coronavirus may have been spread from bats to humans via another species. The WHO expert group's report on Thursday stated that critical pieces of evidence to understand how the epidemic started were still lacking. In order to allow for a thorough examination of all plausible ideas, the experts stated that the group will remain open to any and all scientific data that becomes available in the future. Has China submitted the documents to WHO? The expert committee added that the hypothesis could not be ruled out because previous lab mishaps have been linked to certain outbreaks. They claimed that no research on the potential for the coronavirus to originate from a lab leak had been submitted by China to the WHO. The WHO had previously been criticized for being excessively subservient to Beijing, notably by the former US Trump administration, but the current research is symptomatic of a more antagonistic relationship between China's authoritarian communist leadership and the WHO. Accusations on China. Before closing down the whole city of Wuhan and the nearby region in the first of a series of harsh measures subtitled Zero COVID, which are still in place today, as much of the rest of the world is beginning to open up again, China was accused of responding slowly and concealing the extent of the outbreak. The WHO declared Zero COVID untenable last month, citing the virus's growing awareness as well as the cost to the economy and civil rights. The remark was dismissed by China as irresponsible. China was also accused of directing a misinformation operation, claiming the virus had been found abroad prior to the Wuhan epidemic and advancing various ideas to draw attention away from China. The Associated Press discovered that several senior WHO officials were upset by China during the initial outbreak, even as the WHO praised Chinese President Xi Jinping. They were also outraged by China's efforts to stifle studies into the origins of COVID-19. The Drastic Research Team, which has been looking into the virus's origins, has finally discovered proof that Miss Ma's story was accurate. According to the experts, China has discovered up to 260 instances from the previous December by the end of February 2020. However, China informed the WHO a year later, at the beginning of 2021, that there were only 174 instances in December. This poses significant unresolved concerns, such as who were these early cases, what caused their illness, why didn't they inform the WHO? Some co-authors contended that the Huanan seafood market, which they referred to as the epicenter of the epidemic, was geographically focused on the cases in December in a study that was published in Science magazine in July. They contend that there was a zoonotic overflow from the local fauna. According to Dr. Werrib's study, the only scenario that might account for the pandemic's genesis is a zoonotic spillover. The questions are unanswered. At some points, China is right, and at the same time, China becomes suspicious. What do you think? Is China hiding something? Are the allegations by the US spot on? Or is there no scientific basis, since they are based on artificial intelligence? Let me know your point of view in the comment sections. That was all from our side. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update. Until next time.